And let's see. Oh, yes, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Happy Friday to you. It's always great to be able to hang out with you, man. As you can see, I'm here with two other friends. This is actually a first for me. Usually it's either myself or, every now and again, one other person, but I get to hang out with two great friends of mine. Mark Shalinsky is spent some kind of our lives kind of followed a similar trajectory. A former Army guy in the Canadian Armed Forces, is an international athlete, and this is kind of where we definitely went to divergent paths. He's a smart one, so he's a scientist. He's a data scientist, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with him and picking his brain. And then, of course, you can see the gorgeous one on the right there with the lipstick, showing both Mark and I. That is the human behavior hacker herself. Only, are you like one of the only civilian in the world with your qualification, Susan? Am I correct? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So unique in so many different ways, and I know you guys have met her already, and so I'm excited to spend time with them. When we speak about success, and if I were to ask anyone, like a room of 100 people, I probably get different answers as to the keys to success. People say, well, you have to have a goal or a dream or an audacious vision or any combination thereof. You have to be hardworking and determined and persistent and all that stuff. And I absolutely agree. All of those things are key to success. But I think no matter how motivated you are, there's one key ingredient, I think, if it's missing, then you're not going to achieve success, and it's discipline. And so this afternoon, we want to share some thoughts with you. It's a conversation. So, hey, I want to encourage all of you to feel free to ask questions, make comments. We'll endeavor we want to engage you. We want to have a conversation, not just amongst the three of us, but with all of you. So, Jeff, yeah, I agree. Susan rocks, and definitely rocks more than Mark and I. That's why.
Wait, I cannot see the comments. I'm missing the comment. Here we go. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Yeah. So that's why she's here, because Mark and I need someone to make us look good. So, guys,
wait a minute. If I'm here only for the picture, it's not fair. I work really hard to work in my brain beside my body.
No, we weren't just talking about, but that's the thing. We're not talking about just the looks and that lip sync. We're talking about the brain. You're the only one who can hack human behavior, right? That's, closer to Mark, but I'm so distant from that.
Oh, so, no. Nobody's close into Mark's. Hello. Mark and I, it's funny because Jeff, Mark, and you, Devon, connect through me. I met Jeff first. Then I met Melissa, Jeff Beer, that you had it yesterday. Love it. He's have an amazing story. I met Mark through LinkedIn because I was following his geekiness, and we'd connect, and we did some recording, and I fall in love with his geekiness in his perspective. We was introduced, Devon, with Justin, and I introduced to everyone, and the world is so small, but one of the things that measures success, and just since we start, is the willingness to connect people. And I think it's a karma things, and the best things in my life has coming from people who has introduced me with other ones. And I always says, I don't do advertisement about my business because it's mouth to mouth. Why? Yeah. I have the goal that every week I introduce 10 people to each other. And it's funny how things happen and how they fall in place. And that's the same way. I don't do it because I'm expecting the same from others. I'm doing it because I think it's the right way to grow, and it's a karma, and put it out there. And I can measure my success for the amazing people who surround me and I've been introduced to.
Yeah, but I think it also ties in so well with what we're discussing today, discipline, right? Discipline really comes down to habits and the things that we choose to do on a regular basis in order to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves, right? So, I think I should bring in the geeky Mark here to to introduce himself, obviously, and to give his 2 cents.
Well, kind of to riff off Susan, the key to discipline is understanding what you do well and where you need to shore yourself up. But it's like I like finding both like-minded individuals and people off on the periphery. So you're kind of like the qualitative side to my quantitative side, where I look at the numbers and the aspects and the rudimentary numbers, and then find people like yourself who, are able to look on that qualitative side and how do we marry those things up. And it's having that discipline, it's, you go back to the sports analogy. You want to know the discipline of where do you play well? Where do you play poorly? Where you play poorly, you make sure you practice that. But if you're at the big game, you don't want to be putting yourself into an area where you play poorly and put yourself in a bad position. You want to be able to pass it off to someone else who can play well in that location. So,
and pair with same-minded. For example, I have done shows with other people who does face reading on the Asian way and the Oriental way. I do it on the Western way, and we have done a couple of specials, and we're going to do another one. And I have another coworker who says, "Why are you putting the competitors? Like, you don't have competitors. If you're more afraid about your competition than your work, people is not going to go with other people. People is going to go away from you. So concentrate and you be the best in what you do, and pair for like-mindedness, like Mark says." In September, the first week of September, we start a show with other 3 profilers, top profilers in the world, Janine, Lena, and Michelle. And most people says, what the heck are you 4 doing together? You're supposed to be competitors. And no, we are the top on the field. Each of us is going to be talking about a different area. We already have the first live testing, and we have 1.2K people watching us. And everybody was fascinated with the fact that the world was supposed to be fighting between each other and not liking each other. And it's been an amazing synergy of work. Why? Because you put in 4 brains on the same place doing different things, and people like us for different reasons. Yeah. The people who like Janine, Lena, Michelle is not going to like me, or vice versa. So people like you, your work, and your credentials and your credibility in order to go with you. So in order to success, you need to pair with like minds, and always pair with people who's more intelligent, more successful, because you always need to be a student. The day you become the teacher without being the student at the same time, that's the time where you stop growing and you don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You never want to go into the judo club and be the guy. Yeah, you don't want to go to the judo club and be the guy that beats up everybody. It's time to move to another location.
No,
you got to make sure you
learn. And that's. I mean, I love this little group here because all of us are disciplined, and we bring different ideas and experiences to the subject of discipline, right? So certainly from it's kind of a strictly sports and military point of view, I'm of the ilk that, hey, you get up and you embrace the suck, right? You do things that you don't like to do because you recognize that in doing them, you're going to end up achieving your goals. And perhaps part of that, to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Susan, is sometimes you marry up, so to speak, you team up with people who everybody else may see as your competitor. And we see that in sports as well, Mark, a lot, where, and if you follow professional sports, you'll hear about all these athletes from different teams who are going to be competing and trying to, quote unquote, kill each other during the season. They're working out in the off season because each of them brings to their game a different element that the other can learn from. And so, yeah, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, and that's why I'm here hanging out with you guys. Mark, a while back you said something that I've not been able to stop thinking about. You said data is discipline. Expand on that for us, please.
So data is discipline, because you've got to, in any statistical analysis, you can't do something once and then say, I've got it, I know it. You've got to do it over and over and over again. It's like how many times does it take you to practice a technique before it becomes rote, before, you can, I used to do wrestling, and I practiced an arm throw and fireman's carry probably about 10,000 times each before I was able to hit it in a tournament. So I knew that if I was working on one of my weaker areas, that I would practice that move. I'd have to practice it hundreds of times in the training room before I can even try to even think of being successful in a training environment. And then I'd have to be successful a number of times in the training environment before I would be successful in a tournament. So understanding how much you need to do something to be successful is key. It's just like when you write, how many times do you have to go through edits, and knowing that process. There's being able to collect enough information, because you're not going to show up in any stage and become an expert overnight. There are very few people that can do that, and I am not one of them. So you need to keep practicing and keep the pressure on of doing the same thing over, and having the dedication that I want to do it. And then once you have that focus and it's narrowed down and you've done it a number of times and it becomes rote, then okay, like I do data cleanup in sales operations. I know where to look for the data. I know how to clean the data. I know exactly where to put the data. While I'm doing that, I know that I'm going to do it well and perfectly because I've done it so often, that I can be creative in other areas and start thinking about what else could I be doing with this data? What other analysis could I be doing? So once you've done it, have the discipline to know to do something well, do it a lot, and then you'll get very good at it. And once you have done it a lot, that means you can you've developed those neuronal connectivity, the Hebbian mechanisms of having your neurons connect in the right way, then now you can start thinking about other things while you do that project. You're going to be able to do it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in martial arts field, they talk about the expert is not the guy or the girl who throws 10,000 punches once, but the person who throws that one punch 10,000 times. So that really ties into what you're talking about in terms of data. Susan, how does that relate to your field as a human behavioral expert?
Well, I was talking to you guys, then I went to sleep 5 o'clock in the morning. I wake up 10:30 because I have a meeting with a client in Germany, and he wanted to go through some tips, and I was afraid I'm not going to wake up. So I passed through, sleep 5 hours. I wake up with my face and eyes, and I'm here present because your audience is not responsible. Then I sleep 5 hours. Mm-hmm. That is discipline too. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I learned lately, because I was a private consultant and I didn't need to, I moved data based on they hire me for political consulting. I went to a campaign to another, but I was anonymous. Now I have an exposure company where the data and the analytics and the algorithm need to be watched really careful. Like every Thursday we met all the team together and okay, someone is analyze analytic, who has been writing, who has been buying classes. We analyze absolutely everything. And around 2 months ago, I was like, why the numbers are going so good? And one of the guys says, no idea. So we are talking with people who does social media and social marketing and okay, we're doing something naturally that's well done. This is the data we have. Can we replicate this to keep growing? And he says, well, and he took a month to analyze our media press and what we're doing. And okay, you're doing this well. Now you can be excellent because I have the data and I have the metrics. We did the first webinar we did with Sales Intelligence. Jeff was the second one. We have Mark and we have Sheldon Banks, and we talk about the craft of selling, science, and behavior. That you cannot get one without the other. And the analytics are the one who move you to the top or killing you. You need to know the numbers. I was watching a documentary about Amazon, and I'm not gonna say it's against or in favor, but one of the things that Amazon started doing first was collecting data. How many times people leave things on the car? Where they selling, what products, how they selling, when they selling, what are the areas, what people want asking. And every time that people call, they feel pages of data, like what is the next product. He asked to people, obviously their call center, asked people what other thing you will buy from online, and that's how they grow. And keeps saying, after more than 20 years that he's been where he is, and he says, I'm going to lose money in the beginning to make being successful. I need to look on the future. And he convinced his investors to look on the future on long term. So thinking that you want to wake up and you're going to make millions in one day, it's crazy. But he concentrated on the data. He concentrated on discipline to grow in an expected way. And every time that something didn't work, he moved on. But the truth to be told, all the products he launched are based on the data with the customer asking. So when you Google and when you're looking for something in Google, Google is looking on your search and looking and using the analytics. So everything needs to be with data, and everything has to do with the pattern on your customer and knowing your people. You need to know your people before you know your business. I will not going to be talking with someone who doesn't need behavior, who doesn't understand behavior. And I always says, if I need more than 3 emails to explain you what I do, you're not my customer. Nothing wrong, nothing personal. We can have a coffee and have fun, but you're not my customer because you don't understand. So I need to understand who are my customers in order to approach to them.
So certainly for a business owner, an entrepreneur, you're saying, hey, get to know your customer even before you know your business, which is you're kind of flipping the script here, because most people identify a business that they want to go into, and then they go open their store, whether it's a brick and mortar or
who you gonna sell. If you want, for example, you want to now do bathing suit, and says, oh, I love to design bathing suit. Who's going to the beach? No one. So if I know I have an idea, maybe instead it's happened. It's a well-known pizzeria here in Chicago. I'm gonna give you the example. When this hit, he's like, oh my God, we're gonna go out of business. And one of the employees says, do you know that the temperature that we use on the ovens to make pizza can bend certain acrylic and plastics, and people is gonna need masks? So the pizzeria become a mask maker. Now they're making more money, they hire more people, so they're doing protecting shields for medical and first responders. So instead to keep pushing selling pizza when everybody was afraid to eat outside, he pivoted the business and he says, I want to go back to selling pizza, but today I need to pivot. So he looked on the data, he looked at the number, he did the research, and he looked what market he can go so he doesn't lose the business, the employees, and he hired more people. That is the concept to knowing your customers before your business.
Mark, as a data scientist, thank you for that, Susan. I totally get it. And how does Mary or John apply that to their personal life, so their home life?
To their home life.
Yeah,
I was gonna riff off on the business
data, the business of data being the discipline.
Yeah, I was gonna riff off a little bit on the company side. That it's one of those things that we did this at Duo Security. Is we looked at the folks that were coming in, and we said, they came in at SMB, mid-market, and enterprise, and we looked at all the data, and we said, well, how do we get more enterprise? And we were able to take that data and figure out what our marketing messages were, and then pivot everything towards the enterprise. But, data in the home life, like how do you figure out what you do well? Is there, I'm continually doing this with my kids. I'm telling them, if we're going at X many miles per hour to go how far, how long do you think it's going to take? So making sure that they understand that they're math centric, they're focused, and they know that math is good. Not sure, how much time do you take to do certain projects? Does it take you faster or longer? How do you do things? How do you become more efficient at focusing on things? But usually I run with data samples for companies.
Yeah,
it's like my own.
How about the whole business of budgeting, though? Because that's that's an area where people get in trouble all the time.
Well, budgeting is making sure that you're living within your means, and you've got and you have enough runway in case anything happens. Like when COVID happened, everybody realized a lot more people than we figured realized they were living from hand to mouth or closer than they did, because all of a sudden the economy just kind of took a big stuck and a hiccup, and everybody went, "Whoops, we can't keep doing what we did normally. We've got to adjust." One of the things that happened to me, so on the side, I have I help companies on the side build up their sales and marketing, and I usually help them on the qualitative side of sales, like how do you do cold calls, how do you prospect, how do you find those folks. But more and more, they're looking for the need for data analysis, like how do you, because before I could even help someone understand how to prospect, I have to understand who their customers are, who their prospects are, and all of that is done through data. And a lot of folks don't realize how much data they are or are not collecting. If you just have a company name that you're selling to, I could go out and get about 12 to 15 lines of firmographic data on those companies. Then with that firmographic data, I can correlate that with your sales data. And then we can start seeing who are your true customers. Because a lot of folks, you'll ask them, particularly smaller companies, less than 100 employees, you say, what's the average sales price? And they start waving their hands. It's like, well, we can't really tell because our clients are here, they're there. It's like, no, your clients aren't here, there, and everywhere. You have multiple ideal client sets, and we're going to identify that. We're going to figure out, when you sell to a company that's 1 to 10 employees, that's different from when you sell to a company that's 10,000 employees. And we want to look at how those folks move through their journey together. And we collect data throughout that entire journey. So just like Susan's talk about Amazon and how they collect all that data, all of that qualitative data, you've got to marry that up with the quantitative firmographic data that you can collect. And you could say, okay, you're a small company. You typically, these are the titles of the people I typically work with in these small companies. And this is typically how many people are in the decision-making process. This is how long it takes them to make a decision. These are the factors that help them make a decision. And these are the factors that make, and this is how long they stay as a client. That is different from someone who's a much larger company. They have different titles. They have different motivations. They have different drivers. They have different length of engagements and a variety. I can go on and tell you stories about how we applied that at other companies, but it's one of those things that.
So would you say then that's regardless of obviously there are different approaches based on the size of the company, but generally speaking, that's kind of the tact that sales teams in companies need to take in order to make sure that they are maximizing revenue and processes?
To a degree, because it's not actually. It depends on how you look at that firmographic data. It could be size. At Duo Security, we sold IT security software, and it was measured by number of people because people had to be gated in and out of the software. At FatStacks, we were looking at number of SKUs. So it could be one company. You could have a very small company that makes hundreds of SKUs, hundreds of different products. So how do you rate the size? And that's another issue that people have to understand, because not one firmographic analysis works for all companies. Some companies you need to look at employee count, some annual revenue, some number of field sales reps, some, how many desks do you have? And then once you figure out how do you size your company, and sometimes you even need multiple ones. A company in, Southwest Florida might not be the same as a company in California, even though they look the same on paper. And then you have to figure out, well, how do you triangulate that? And that's where a data scientist comes in, because data science is the combination of computer science, statistics, and domain expertise. Because you need that you need the computer science to be able to apply the high-level statistical analysis and the domain expertise so that you can then say, all right, this passes a sniff test.
Yeah.
Are there any free online tools to do basic analysis? Said Kevin Smith. All right, this is my shameless plug for Google Sheets. Google Sheets is really awesome because you can do all these low-end SQL databasing projects. One moment. Yes, Raphael, I am on a call right now. Okay, Raph. Yes, may I have a few moments myself? So back in the good old days, we would have been totally ashamed to be interrupted, and then COVID came, and then people said, "I'm just going to get interrupted." Now it's just expected that you'll get interrupted. So now I've got mine. So now we're going to wait for Susan and Devin to get interrupted.
Yeah, well, welcome to live TV, man. That's what happens, and you handled it gracefully like a pro. So, Kevin, thank you so much for chiming in. Were you finished answering his question?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll help you out. We'll show you what you need. I will leave this. The worst example I ever had is I was working at one company, and the director of marketing comes up and it says, "Oh yeah, we have a we're statistically significant jump in leads." And I'm like, "How do you know it's statistically significant?" He said, "Oh, I put into Google." I'm like, "What?" It's like,
yeah.
So I was dumbfounded. I'm like, they have people who get PhDs in stats. You don't just plug it into Google. Is it a NOVA, a t-test? Like, what is it? What are you doing?
Yeah. So Susan, I know in applying your superpower, your ability to really understand who is on the other end of the phone just by their voice. So how would a small business owner who is trying to figure out who their customers are and maybe collecting the data the way Google did, when they call in, how does that relate, and how would you advise them, I guess, to develop this ability to develop this sixth sense, I want to say, for want of a better term, to know how truthful or accurate the information that they're gathering is from their clients?
You need to do behavioral questions. I remember talking with Mark that, how you agree and how you find out if the person that you are talking is the real deal maker. Mm-hmm. For example, when you're talking with someone because you want to do a deal, it says one of the questions is like, how many times before you have hired people to do training to your team? Oh, never. Oh, who usually do it? Well, usually it's my boss. Usually mean is not all the time. Says, beside your boss, who, by the way, who is your boss? Who usually, you repeat the word, that's how you mirror someone, is the one who make the training or the training budget in your company. So I qualify my data based on behavioral. So one thing is the data that the marketing department use based on the metrics on the media. And the other one is the behavioral questions that we do when we get to the customer or the customer approach us. And sometimes you're talking with not a decision maker. So how are the odds that the information you give to that person is going to be translated on the way they need to be translated to the decision maker when the person you're talking is not having any idea either of the problem? Because sometimes, hey, we need a training, and what? I don't know, we need to train the sales department. Right. So what are the problems? How many people you have in your team? How many managers? So it says, well, we have a team of 25 people and we have problems with all the people. Like, can I talk to the manager first? Because if all your team is not working, you need to look on the top of the food chain. That's the first brain you need to change. Like when you want to change something in your body, first you need to change your mindset, your brain, in order to change your body. The same happens. So I think they're doing quality behavioral questions that can be embedded inside the conversation or being directly. Are you in charge of making the decisions? Not. It's any possibility that we can have a second meeting with the decision maker in case that it's any other questions. I initially try to talk to the decision maker. I try to identify who's going to be the one who say yes or not, or at least can translate and give me the information what is real the problem. In my case, what happened is people says, we have a problem, we need training. And what? Yeah. Well, we need to conquer this. Like, well, in order to conquer this, that's what needs to be done. So it's weird that sometimes you need to educate your customers in what they need, because it's a different what they want and they need. They want training, but they need a behavioral, deeper understanding than what is their problem. Why? So they don't replicate the problem, they replicate the solution. So in my case, it's a completely behavioral standpoint. It's a completely change of mindset. And we start from my team. Everybody have Myers-Briggs done. It's not using to hire people, it's to understand your preferences. So I hired 2 people in my team. And after a week to talking to them, not only they switch places, they are asking for training on specific things. Those specific things, they're making them better. Why? Because the day I did the interview, it's like, okay, your paper look amazing. What do you want to do? Like in 5 years, like, no, that question doesn't work. What do you want to do? Can close your eyes and dream what you're going to do?
Right.
And like, I would love to do something that make my daughters proud and show them that a woman can be independent and doesn't need to get married to be someone. So she went from working in a call center to studying marketing and social media, and she's developing the social media of the market. Never did it before. She had a glitch for it. She had a nose for it. And even before asking me if she can do it, she already sent me a proposal, all the classes, how long it's going to take her, all this research she did. So she came to talk to me because first, I opened the door to do it. Second, I give them the chance to do it. So that's one of the behavioral things that you need to change and talk to your customers or future customers to determine who you can work with and who you cannot work with. Sometimes we need to learn to fire clients, and one of the most difficult things that some companies do not understand. You not only fire employees, you need to fire clients too.
I absolutely agree, because that one client that you're trying to hold on to, and you end up investing so much more energy and time and resources, and the ROI is minuscule. Versus, find that client and find.
I'm sorry, it's not only about money, it's about how toxic it can be for your work environment to having a customer who pushing and pushing and pushing and is not giving result. It's exacerbating your team. It's getting everybody working extra hours when they don't get it. It's not only they don't buy your products, it's they don't get it and fight you all the way to the process. So your process is not going to be delivered in the right way if you have the chance to be delivering. And another part is like, it's going to be a rock every step of the way. So at the end, they're going to say the training didn't work. Like, no, you didn't allow me to do it.
Yeah.
So if you hire me because I'm an expert in something, or at least I know more than you know how to fix the problem, just let it go. One of the good things about the pandemic, and I'm sorry to say it because, is that the micromanagement managers need to learn to let it go. Like, they cannot be on top of people in micromanagement. And I know friends who are working better, they're loving working from home, and they're being more productive. Why? Because they don't have somebody like looking in your head, like, you're a number and you need to produce this. So now the micromanagement is lost.
The behavioral shifts that, quite frankly, all of us need to make, Susan. So is there a suggestion for, whether it's a managing supervisor or boss or the helicopter parent? What shift do you think they need to make in their behavior, which really comes on again to this idea of discipline, to have better outcomes, whether it's with their kids or their staff?
You need to hire well. I think the first step is hiring the right team. And again, it's not what the papers, it's what they want to go. When I interviewed, none of the people that is working on the team know anything about behavior before. Everybody wanted the opportunity to show they can do it. Everything was curious. Everybody was creative, and the longest it took me was to make them understand that they can voice in their voice. There need to be challenge me. There need to challenge the coworkers. And I'm not running a kindergarten. And the first thing is this: I'm not running a kindergarten. If I need to be controlling your timing and your work, you're not the right person, and I'm not the right person for you. So this is a relationship.
Right.
I meet you in the middle. So hiring process is the most important. And it's something that Jeff Peterson says, I want to make sure that you become so good that my company look good on your resume. And I know you're not going to be working with me forever, but in the meantime, you're working here, I want your 100%. It's not about how many hours you work. It's about the job being done. It took me more time to me as a manager to learn to be a better boss than my team to get adopted. It's your job as a manager or a CEO to know your people. It's not your people's job to know you. That's when you grow as a company and you allow your people to grow, and they're pushing you, because when you have somebody pushing you and making you become better, the only path you have is to become better.
Yeah. Agreed. It's about you growing, they're helping you grow, but it's because you, the manager, the boss, the CEO, is developing that discipline, those habits to go out and go learn about, get to know your people. You don't sit on your title and think that they should know you, and you develop this idea, this mindset that, hey, I have to keep learning.
By the way, I have one person that I hire that her job is keep me on track. Yell to me, she does my presentation and says, in 24 hours, this presentation is going to be erased. And she does it. I tell her, you need to do it. I'm like, by the way, no, you need to push me because I'm not good with deadlines. So she pushing me and pushing me, and she's really good in that. And I have increased productivity, and everybody have done it because her job is be my boss. And I adore her for it. And I ask for it. You need to know your preference, weakness, or low part, your cracks, in order to hire someone who make you better. Doesn't matter, you pay them for the salary. You need to put it on the right place. But again, has to do with knowing your weakness, your preference, and where you need to have help. Asking for help is one of the things the manager, CEOs is the higher number of people depressed in the world. It's the most solitary place on the world, because how much you can talk to your friends. You're afraid to talk to your employees. You're afraid to say, I don't know, I need help. We have talked with Mark, and Mark says, I say to Mark, I'm having problem with this thing. He introduced me with another person who's helping me. But most people, when it says oh no, I know it all. No, I asking for help, and I have mentors all over the place. Why? Because they helping me become better, knowing what are my weakness, hire more intelligent, talking to my team, and my team is on top of everything that is happening, from money-wise to clients who are falling to projects who's coming.
That's definitely a discipline that more leaders or more people in leadership positions need to develop. Mark, I think Kevin has another question for you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk to Kevin about different resources, because depending on what he's looking for, there's a variety of data sources, free, paid, all over the net. So I'll drop my contact information, or just find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. But I wanted to riff off of what Susan was mentioning. The biggest learning curve I ever had becoming a manager is realizing the role of a manager, director, C-level is not to, it's to keep your people happy, keep them motivated and driven. You don't, well, what's that quote? You don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. You hire folks and you let them do it. You just say, what is blocking you in your job? Like, we would have sales meetings where it's like, okay, one part of the sales meeting is talking about, is there anything stopping you from generating revenue? Like, what is holding you back? I've moved into sales operations at SkySync, where I'm doing that full time. And anybody asks me oh, are you busy? It's like, I'm not busy, because my job is to help you make money. If I can help you make money, then I'm definitely here to help.
Yeah.
And I follow the Mike Weinberg framework, which for sales is essentially, you don't want to micromanage anybody, but you put them in a framework. If you're hitting, whoops, where's the video? If you're hitting quota, I want to help you crush quota. If you're not hitting quota, I want to look at your pipeline and help you convert your pipeline to quota. If you're not hitting pipeline, let's look at your activities. And if you're hitting it, and figure out how we convert those activities to pipeline. And if you're not hitting activities, well, then you're on a plan, because you've got to do the minimum of hit your activities. And no one really wants to sit there and say, all right, did you make your 150 dials? Because maybe it takes him 150 dials to make one deal, and it takes them 25 dials to make a deal. We're not going to put them on an even playing field. We're going to put them at the end result. And that's kind of where the data fits in, is, KPIs, OKRs, they're the big thing. It's like, how do we make something measurable a success? So when you go on a consulting gig, it's like, all right, we're going to do, what is the measure? Is the measure going to be, I'm going to give you 6 hours. At the end of 6 hours, you get what you got? Or is the measure, I'm going to make your people 10% better? Well, if I make your people 10% better, how do we gauge them from here to here? How do we do that? And then that it helps to ensure, puts guardrails on the factor that, everybody knows what's happening. Like, one of my favorite quotes is, time is the only commodity nobody's making more of. So you don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
And everything is a balanced equation of time, money, information. You're going to give up time. I'm going to give up my time so you can give me money so I can provide you with information. And we got to make sure that's a balanced equation. You're going to give me money to get my information. So let's make sure that the information I'm giving you is worth the money you're spending.
The money, exactly.
So how do we balance that equation consistently? And then that's where, and once you understand that is actually an equation, then you could start applying your metrics. Okay, what's my per hourly rate? I know what I can make in a year. And then you could say, well, this is what my hour, and lawyers are really good at doing that.
They are, and accountants. So data scientists don't do that as well, Mark?
We're trying. People just, how about it? It's still the dark art. They figure you take the data, you take the CRM, you extract the data, you enhance the data, you do some wizardry in an SQL database, and you tell them that's where you're going to find 65,000 clients that will pay you $2,000 a pop, and you're going to have a 30% conversion rate. Go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Kevin, thank you so much for your questions. Sophia, I noticed that you joined in as well. I guess you were talking to either Mark or Susan. You were calling them a genius, and of course Jeff, chimed in as well. Now this subject of discipline, guys, as we started on the topic of our conversation, that it's a bridge to success. Really is a bridge to success in every area of our lives, regardless of what it is that we're doing, right? I'm not one, quite frankly, who is inclined to look at data in the depth that either of you do, but I definitely see the benefit in it. I obviously work with data, but that's a discipline that I know I have to develop and get better at to get to the next level.
Can I ask you guys a question, both of you?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that fascinate me about people, and like I always say, the world, it's a big microscope, not because I'm criticizing you, I'm observing and learning from you. Everybody have a different dictionary. The dictionary for me on discipline, I'm gonna say it after. Devon, what is the concept of discipline for you?
It's I think I said it earlier, it's making yourself do the things that you need to do that you don't necessarily feel like doing at any given moment, because you know that doing them is going to help you to achieve your goals.
Mark?
Guess what? It's data. So I keep on, all I do is I've got my app on my phone. Every time I go to the gym or I do a workout, I'm like rating how many, the very easy ones, like how many push-ups did I do? How many pull-ups did I do? What was the rating? How long did it take me? And I have all this data, and I could look at it and I could say, it's like, oh, today I felt bad. Well, did I feel bad? But I actually progressed. I actually did it 30 seconds better. I will do time scales. Like, I have a project that they just jumped on my desk, and it's a ETL, extract, transform, and load project. So it's how do we put it? It's a fork in your eyes, painful project. But I'm gonna do it. I'm like, all right, I got 1,000 points to clean up. So I put my stopwatch on, start, stop. Okay, how how'd I do? It's like, and then I'm going to rate myself and see, can I do it faster? Can I do it slower? And I've got all my benchmarks. I'm kind of a data geek, and I'm creating data all the time with everything. So your discipline is always know how you're doing things. And that allows me to be able to tell people, someone will come and say, hey, we want you to do this project. And I'll say, great, I know it's going to take me 5 hours. Well, how do you know? Did you just pull it in the back of your hand? No, I've done it about 35 times. I've got all my metrics, and I've written all these things down in a crazy spreadsheet of how long it takes me to do things. So I know how to rate my day, because at the end of the day, I want to have free time. I got my kids, as you saw them running in and out. Actually, I was interrupted 3 times. You only saw once. So I did some Jedi mind tricks on the side. But I want to have. So I know exactly how long it's going to take me to do certain projects and what the effect will be. So because I have that data, I can usually come in and better ascertain. It's like the consultant where they had the engine. It was having issues, and they went to the consultant. Told them it's going to be $10,000. They said, no, it's too expensive. A month later, they called him back, and he showed up, and he just took his hammer and hit it in 1 point. And they said, we had 30 other people show up, which are much cheaper, and you fix this. Why is that worth $10,000? He said, because you're not paying for me to fix it. You're paying for my experience to know how to fix it.
Yeah, indeed. It's really interesting. So, Susan, you speak about the fact that we all have our dictionaries, and I, mentioned earlier that I perhaps approach data. I approach data very differently from the way both of you do. But what's interesting, just kind of following up on Mark, is that I kind of use it in a very similar way, just perhaps don't explain it that way. So, for example, to use the exercise analogy, Mark, and every single athlete pays attention to, let's say how many push-ups they will do in a given session, and how they are improving, or the length of time of a particular exercise, or the times that they'll run a particular distance, which I have never really thought about prior to this very moment. That's all data. And to go back to your quote, data is discipline. It's all data. So as an athlete, I realize now that I have been using data in that way all my life. Just
how you determine that you are improving from the last competition or the last week of training if you don't keep a track on the data? Like when I was in high school, they tried, because I have long legs, they assume that I'm going to be a good runner. And every time they test me, the data says, you're horrible. So thank God, because I didn't want to be on the running team. But the data shows data is constantly that you are horrible on this. So data get me out of the team, thank God. But I don't think you can do sport if you don't measure your progress. How you measure, guys, you are a sport. I don't go to the gym even to have a coffee. But how you measure your progress on an Olympic way or in a training way, Mark is like always training and measure. So you need the data. No, everything is data in life.
That's the thing. I've never really thought of it that, hey, I create a training program and I record my times. I never thought, oh, it's data. I don't do the spreadsheet thing. I'm kind of a little bit more old school. But yeah, I just recently spoke about like when I just started running track, and no matter how hard I trained that first year, and I'm watching the times, and I can't run faster. And that second year, as I learned better techniques, as obviously I got older and stronger, I didn't have to try as hard to hit those same very times over those distances. So that was me tracking my data without an Excel sheet. So yeah, it's a interesting concept, the business of data, and the fact. I mean, the reason why I asked you earlier, Mark, about how we use data in our personal lives is only because in a previous conversation you spoke about that it's the data stupid. That's my term. You have to know what your budget is, how much is coming in, and what your expenses are, and because all of that helps you to run a successful household. And so it's not just business. It's not just large companies and small companies. It actually impacts every single area of our lives. How do you define discipline?
Well, I have a phrase always says, the definition of madness is doing everything every day the same and expecting you have a different outcome. Discipline for me is being always a student. I love teaching because I learn more from people than I learn from books. I already have all the books on the market. I read them, I listened to them, I have the stick colors, but that I need to be translated to human life. I need to take it out of the lab and live it every day. So the discipline for me is ask for feedback, always be the student, even though when I'm the teacher, and that's how I start my training, talking to my clients and says, why you hire me, what I did for you, why you would says if you need to talk about my job with other person, how you would introduce me. I have the discipline to talk and the discipline to listen to criticism or feedback, however you're going to take it, and take things that even though I don't agree, I don't like, in contemplation and like, okay, that is data I need to understand. Then maybe that happened. For example, I always have misspelling. I always say I'm dyslexic. If after a 6 hours class, somebody says, oh, I was really disrupted that you have 3 misspelling and I don't like your perfume, that is not a feedback. That is not what I'm asking you. That is not maybe the right person for me. So having the discipline to says, I'm going to lose a chunk of money at the end of the year, but you're not my customer. So the discipline to learn, the discipline to be a student, the discipline to listen things that you don't want to listen, and the discipline to say, I need help. Can I pick your brain? Can I invite you a coffee to know more about the things I don't know? That is growing. That is the discipline to keep growing every day.
Mark, you made a really good point earlier as well, something that I've started practicing fairly recently, because when in my work, I can get so engrossed in one particular, let's say, project or assignment or task that I give myself. And I end up spending the entire day doing that, although I have 10 other things to do. So what I've started doing with my trusty cell phone, and the camera is here, is that I would like put a 30-minute timer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on this now, and I'm giving myself 30 minutes. And, you know, when you don't think about it, 30 minutes can seem like a really long time. But when you're on the clock, you know, I'm there working, I'm like, and the thing goes off, beep, beep, beep. I'm like, crap, the 30 minutes is over already. And so I either make a decision then to extend my time or to go, okay, we will pick this up later today or tomorrow, and let me work on something else. Otherwise, you find that your day has ended and you haven't really gotten much done.
Well, there's two ways of doing. Well, there's a Russian proverb: a job will take as long as you give it. So you give it as much time as you need, and a thesis is never finished; it's just abandoned. And on the other side, it's like you wake up in the morning and it's like, what are the 2 or 3 things I need to accomplish today? And you just get that, and that's my North Star. That's what I've got to get done. If I'm in sales, I know I need to book 2 meetings today. All right, let's go and let's book those 2 meetings today. Maybe it happens by 10 a.m. Maybe it happens by 10 p.m. But I know that is my goal of achieving something. And then you've got the discipline. It's like, okay, I wake up in the morning. What do I need to do today? Maybe I said I need to book 2 meetings. I booked 5. So I was doing a great day. So the next day, okay, I don't need to book 2 meetings. I'm ahead of the game. I could do something else. Maybe I need to finish 7 chapters of my next book that I'm reading. So I can educate myself so that every day I can do 5. But it's, you know, being able to have that discipline of what do I need to do and how do I categorize it? And when I have too many things I need to do, then you get distracted, because now it's like there's not sure if you ever watch Futurama. Do you?
No,
I did. I love it.
So there was one episode where the robot Bender says, "You want me to do 2 things? I could do 1 thing, but 2 things."
Well, Denver was a special character. Let's put it this way.
But the key is, it's like give yourself sizable chunks. It's baby steps. If you do a little bit every day, you'll achieve things. It's that's why a PhD takes years to accomplish, because you don't get it all done at once. You've got to keep going. You don't go to the Olympics for bobsledding by just jumping on the track and saying, yeah, that's going to be great. Years of training.
Yeah. The Jamaicans shortcut the system, but that's another story.
Well, you guys were all athletes before that.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, you make a really good point. I mean, I was joking, but you're absolutely right. When people hear of our story and like, wow, you didn't know about bobsledding, but you ended up at the Olympics in a matter of months. I think what they fail to consider are the many years we spent in Jamaica honing and developing our athletic talents, so that all that year of training and discipline could be brought to focus on this next 3 months to learn this thing and get to the Olympic Games, right? They talk about keep on pushing, taking all your existing skills and knowledge and experience and applying it to a new environment in order to take advantage of or create new opportunities.
It's the iceberg effect. You only see the tip of the iceberg.
Indeed. So they see us at the Olympics and go, wow, they were lucky, whatever it is, but all that work from all the years prior, all that discipline, paid off. That was that bridge from track to bobsledding in such a short time span.
I'm sorry, that is one of the reasons when people start a meeting say, how much is going to cost me? Nothing. I don't think we can talk, because if you start thinking how much is going to cost it as an expense and not as an investment, when you train your people, when you find out what can be improved, you're investing in yourself. If you see hiring somebody with experience, whatever experience, because everybody's an expert in something that you're not. I have a leaking in my roof who dropping water and ruin my computer. That's an expert that I need. And I need to hire somebody who fix it well, fast, and get the job done. So when somebody starts thinking that it's an expense, what you do, or the expertise you bring, or you can do it in 5 minutes, like, yeah, because I've been doing it for 30 years. That is not the person you need to go. So having the discipline, the knowing to justify who you are and the experience you have, I think is another thing that we need to learn as humans, that, okay, I have X amount of years of experience. The devil know more for being old than being the devil. So when people start a conversation, how much you're going to cost, maybe you need to understand and get the discipline to know and measure what happened with all the clients who started conversation that way, and what that data to collect from that too.
Well, then they end up depreciating the value of the information they're providing, because, okay, it's a dollar figure, and this is one of the things we did with our sales process, is we told, going all the way back from the beginning of the conversation, the folks that were of a certain size, our first sales move would be telling them that it's going to be a very high price, because that would scare 80% of them off. And if they weren't scared off, then we knew we would deal with them, and most of the time, most sales experts are going to say, never discuss price, talk about value. But we knew that those small fry people, a lot of them would be frightened by price. So we just drop a very high price on them. And we know when they turn around and say, oh, it's not for us, we know it's not for us either.
Right. Cool. Any parting shots, Susan, on the subject of discipline and how it bridges us to success?
No, I think that Mark bring a really good point, that everything is a relationship, even with a client, because you're going to spend time going through what are the needs. So I always say, meet me in the middle, and I don't have any problem to meet you there. But if I need to go 100% and bring you and pull you, it's not the kind of relationship we can have. So learning, and this time of desperation that a lot of people need to pivot or change or adapt to not to lose, there's some time picking job or clients, and have the discipline to understand that you need to pick the right team, the right mentors, the right clients, and the right business. So that's the discipline to understand what is going on out there. So
Mhm.
if you're gonna go run and jump in a swimming pool and you didn't check if it's have water, you're gonna break your neck.
Yeah.
So you need to have the discipline to, at least I do research in absolutely everything. I don't even buy a lawnmower without doing research. So I don't say it's the best example, but the margin of error, it's smaller. And when
Mhm.
you short the margin of error because you have the right data, because you have the discipline to go to the right people, that's when you go on the difference between the corner store to success company and having success people and happy customers.
Indeed.
So I heard a quote today from Jake Dunlap. Data will help you accelerate your time to change.
Great. Can
So
I stole that?
I've already stole it from Jake. So
No, well, it's ours now. We're sharing it. So, but yeah,
it's out
absolutely,
there.
because
So
it's with all that data, then you'll think that everything is honky dory. And one of the nuggets that I've pulled from the conversation we have here is that understanding what it is that you're working with, your customers and their inclinations and hence how you need to position yourself, and certainly in our private lives or personal lives, gathering the data from the experiences and the results that we are creating then help you to make the changes necessary to get success, right? That it's a thing, that discipline that bridges that us to success. So, guys, this has been enlightening. I appreciate the folks who joined in. And Mark, how does someone find you if they want to get I know Kevin, for example, has many
yes.
questions, and how do they find you?
You can find me at on LinkedIn is one good way. Another good way is my email is just mark@data sales science. So there's lots of S's. datasalescience.com. That email gets to me because spelling my last name is sometimes difficult, and I will learn for next time that I shouldn't just put up my first name on these webinars.
No, you put your last name, but you're the old Shalinsky, so automatically LinkedIn, as soon as you put the first three letters, you show up.
Yeah.
So see, I've learned one thing, so this is good.
Yeah, see, it's the data, man. It's the data. And Susan.
You can find me for corporate training and humanbehaviorlab.com, and for free package training and human behavior hacker school. And like you invited me before, we're doing the first study of reading faces and emotion with mask. It's free, and we still on the phase 1 evaluating faces. So if you want to participate in the study, we much appreciate it. We're looking for the biggest amount of data to determine the accuracy, because we're going to be training people for free to stop being afraid. So talking about data, please collaborate. There's nothing wrong is going to happen. We're looking for data.
That's the discipline. So guys, hey, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're watching this afterwards, hey, don't forget to like it. Don't forget to share it. Because your friends want to be inspired and they want to be informed as well, right? So again, thank you for joining. You can always find me on social media, IG, Twitter at Keep On Pushing 88. Yep, Keep On Pushing 88. Of course, LinkedIn and YouTube is at Keep On Pushing Always. Until we connect next time, remember, discipline, that's a bridge to success. And I want to challenge you, encourage you to keep on pushing.
There we go.